Hi everyone, this is Alec Jeffries, Senior Director of Membership and Registrations for IIBEC. This is the IIBEC Registrations and CEHs presentation. During the next 15 or 20 minutes, we're going to go through kind of an overview of what the IIBEC professional registrations programs look like. We'll discuss the application and exam process. Once you achieve your professional registration, what it takes to maintain it with annual CEHs. We'll take a quick look at how best to self-report your CEHs to make sure that your professional registrations are staying up to date and maintained, and how IIBEC promotes registrations. It's very important for us to share and promote our professional registrations and show the value of those credentials. And then lastly, I'll review the CEH approval process for chapters as well as your own company. So if your chapter or company that you work for is interested in putting on continuing education programs, we'll walk through what that CEH request process looks like to get IIBEC approval for continuing education hours. All right, so you have decided that it's time to go after one of the wonderful IIBEC professional registrations. You've identified which one, and I'll start this whole presentation by saying if you ever have any questions along this process, IIBEC staff are always welcome and more than welcome to help out, to answer any questions. We have a great handbook and kind of overview of the professional registrations programs, but I know some folks just enjoy talking it through, and we're here and willing and able to help. So please reach out if and when you have questions throughout any of this process. So the application process really starts with an individual logging into their own profile. As many of you know, IIBEC has moved everything online, so every individual has their own professional profile, regardless of whether you are a member or non-member. You have a profile in our system, and the first order of business is to log into your profile and click on the application that you're interested in completing. So you're in your profile, you scroll down and you say apply for the RRC, for example. And you'll see the different options below in your profile. This is really your starting point. This is where you're going to engage in the actual online application process, start answering some of the questions and opening up that the application. And just for your reference, staff can see when an application has been initiated, even if it isn't complete yet. So if you contact us midway through your application, we can look on the back end and see, oh, this individual has started their application. It looks like they're getting hung up on this spot, and we can assist as needed. There is a PDF available, so if you'd like a hard copy of the application, we can certainly send that to you. We have a handbook and a study guide PDF, so just reach out and we can provide whatever hard copy documents you'd like. Usually an application is reviewed within a 90-day period. And this obviously depends on how thorough the initial submitted application is, how detailed all of the sections that are required are. But we like to get these reviewed and approved as quickly as possible. I'm sure you all want to have them reviewed and approved quickly as well. If you are a chapter and you are encouraging folks at a chapter event to seek one of these professional registration programs, you can reassure them that we want to get this done as quickly as possible. In recent years, we've been able to cut down this application review process, usually to a couple weeks once everything is submitted. So it's definitely improved our efficiency and effectiveness with getting these reviewed and approved. And it's also important to note that the exam registration forms are only sent once the application is approved. So an individual completes the application, they submit it to IIBEC staff, there's a staff review process. Oftentimes our staff will reach out to the applicant if we have any questions or need additional information for any of the sections. Once the application is approved and it's received the thumbs up from IIBEC headquarters, then we will reach out to both the applicant saying that the application is approved. We will also reach out to our partner testing center, Scantron. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more here in a second. but we will both notify the applicant of approval and notify our testing center that we have an approved application, and this starts the exam registration process. And so if you think of it, it's first application, then exam registration, then you sit for the exam, then you pass the exam, and then registration maintenance with continuing education hours. So going back to the application, really there's a combination of ways to meet the requirements for any of our professional registrations. It's always based on a point scale with a combination of professional experience and education. And IIBEC over the years has really done a good job of trying to be an inclusive and open tent organization. So we don't want to exclude any professionals from any certain backgrounds. We really want folks to be able to achieve these professional registrations based on whatever qualifications they have. So if you have 20 or 30 years of work experience, but you're not a licensed engineer, you're most likely going to be able to check a lot of the boxes and get that point threshold. Conversely, if you are a professional engineer, but maybe you only have a couple years of direct roof consulting experience, your PE license will get you a bunch of points to qualify as well. So there's a lot of different ways to qualify and meet the requirements for our professional registration applications. There's always a section for experience with job history. There's always a section for professional education and continuing education hours. We do require a certain number of professional education hours that have been submitted, and that's always within the last 10 years. So if you've done technical education more than 10 years ago, it's not going to qualify for your application. And then references. We value our references. Some organizations don't actually reach out to the references and confirm. IIBEC does a painstaking process of reaching out to references and confirming and reviewing any kind of endorsement or encouragement from a peer within the organization. And this is very important to us because we are a organization that's focused on ethics and credibility, and word of mouth and peer review and peer references is very important to us. So 5 references are always required, and it's also important that depending on the professional registration, you may need a PE or a reference that already has one of the IIBEC professional registrations. So here is the point scale. As mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to achieve the 100 points threshold, and depending on the professional registration that you're going for, there will be different requirements in different sections. So again, you'll want to review this before you start your application, but there's a lot of different ways to meet those 100 points through work experience, education, and then if you hold other professional registrations, that can also bump up your point scale to help you qualify. So you've completed the application, you've submitted it to IIBEC, staff has reviewed it, we've given you the thumbs up, what's next? Well, it's time to register for the exam. And from the time your application has been approved, you actually have a 2-year shelf life on that application. So if you're not quite ready to take the exam right after you've had your application approved, you can sit on it for a little bit. We obviously encourage applicants to test more quickly than 2 years, but if you need to take the full 2 years, you can even do an extension. We understand that things change, people change companies, have a pause in your career. So once you have that approved application, there is a 2-year shelf life and the ability to extend that for another 2 years if needed. All of our professional registrations are now computer-based exams, and we work with our testing partner Scantron. They have thousands of testing centers around the world, and when we notify them that we have an applicant that's approved to sit for an exam, they reach out to the applicant. We'll provide them your contact information and let you know where your most convenient location for testing is. Oftentimes it's at a university, a military base, or some sort of structured facility where there's a proctor, someone to check your ID when you check in, a quiet place to take an exam. If you are successful, which we hope everyone is on the first go at the exam, then we send you a big hooray packet that sends the card, a certificate, and your new professional registration ID number that's linked to your credential. If you are not successful, you're welcome to retest, but there's a 4-month wait period before you can sit for the exam again. This oftentimes people want to go the next day and test again. And this is just something that our professional exam development folks have really feel is important, to have the approved test taker wait 4 months, reapply, and go sit for the exam again. And we're happy to walk you through that process. We also proactively will reach out to an applicant that did not pass the first time and let them know, hey, you've got 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks, and then you'll be ready to sit. And we certainly encourage you to sit again if you don't get it the first time. So what are the best practices for exam prep? Well, first and foremost, reach out to IIBEC staff. We can provide you with a study guide, some sample questions, and you'll definitely want to take a look through the breakdown of exam topics and how the exam is structured. And in the study handbook, there is a weighting of the exam, so you can see exactly what sections and how they're weighted on the exam. So if you feel confident in a certain area and you know that that's 40% of the exam, maybe you spend a little bit more time studying for the section that you're not as familiar with. It's also important to note that IIBEC has really great education programs that complement a lot of our professional registration programs. So if you're looking to beef up your knowledge in a certain technical area in preparation for one of our professional registrations, I would strongly encourage you to look at our online education offerings and also reach out to IIBEC staff, and we can kind of direct you in the right area. It's also important to note that our chapters have done an excellent job of hosting meetup groups or other exam prep study groups, and this is, there's been a lot of really positive results with this, and we want to encourage our chapters to be a resource for those gearing up to take the exam. There are very strict rules in what folks can disclose and not disclose. Obviously, if you are a chapter leader and if you've sat for one of these exams, then you have seen firsthand what the test questions are, and it's very important that that's not shared or disclosed to future examinees. However, IIBEC headquarters will work with chapters to set up a study review session that goes over the handbook, talks more generally about some of the sections, and prepares examinees for their upcoming test. So you've passed your professional registration, you've received your new registration packet, you're really excited to put this thing to use. IIBEC now has it listed on our international member directory that you are a professional registration in one of our different areas, whether it be the Registered Roof Observer designation or Registered Roof Consultant, and you are off to the races. You have elevated your professional level and you're adding more value both to you professionally and your organization. Kudos to you. 12 months later, at the end of the year, there's going to be some annual requirements to maintain this professional designation. And this is by design. We want to make sure that our professional registrants are staying sharp in their technical knowledge, and that we are requiring technical education to maintain one of these professional registrations. So depending on which professional registration you hold, there are a certain number of continuing education hours required each year. Our observer designations, the Registered Roof Observer and Registered Exterior Wall Observer, have 10 CEHs required each year. Our consultant designations, the Registered Roof Consultant, Registered Exterior Wall Consultant, and Registered Waterproofing Consultant, are all 12 CEHs per year. And if you hold all 3 of those consultant designations, then you are at a very prestigious level with the RBEC, the Registered Building Enclosure Consultant designation, and that requires 15 CEHs per year. So self-reporting CEHs, this is something that we highly encourage. Again, it all goes through the individual's profile. Once you've completed technical education, we encourage you to go to your profile, to click on the CEH under My CEHs section, and you can self-report your continuing education hours. Also, if you're a chapter putting on technical education and you have questions, this is how best you're going to advise those individuals. So you're a chapter, you've just completed a great education program, and you have people coming up to the table saying, what do I do now to report my CEHs? Well, first thing you're going to advise them to do is to log into their IIBEC profile. And in their profile, they're going to click self-report CEH credit, and they're going to put in the overview of what they did. If it was a chapter event, they'll put in chapter program, name of the program, how long it was, and most important is uploading some sort of document, an attendance verification document, a certificate of completion. And the reason why we ask for this document to be uploaded is because IIBEC audits our professional registrants each year, a certain number of them. There's a random selection. And if our registrants have done a diligent job of self-reporting their CEHs, including the supporting documentation, then there's no need for IIBEC staff, if you've been selected for an audit, to reach out to you. You will be identified as having completed an audit because IIBEC staff behind the scenes will take out the certain percentage of those being audited. We will go to your profile. We will verify through documentation that yes, indeed, this person completed the required number of CEHs. We will look at the supporting documents and we'll put that check mark. There doesn't need to be any back and forth. We don't need to be trying to track down continuing education that you may have done months or years ago. So it's really important that when you complete education, you self-report it through your profile. IIBEC region meetings and most of our larger IIBEC programs, our building enclosure symposia, our annual convention and trade show, those are automatically recorded, but we do on site, if you'll remember, there's oftentimes a form that's included in your registration packets. So you need to fill that out so we know what technical education you actually attended on site, and then our staff will self-report that. For chapter education, the individual will need to self-report that. IIBEC over the years has developed a marketing program, so when professional registrations have achieved their designation, that we broadcast that to the general industry. We do this two ways. One, we want to make sure that the industry is aware of what a registered roof consultant is, or registered roof observer, or any of our professional designations, what the value that individual brings to the table. Our advocacy team is constantly trying to get these professional designations included in preferential treatment. The RRO has had substantial success in getting written into a lot of preferred contracts. So if you hold the RRO, you may have clients reaching out to you saying, we're required to have a registered roof observer for this job, and we noticed that you have one. Can you come and take a look at our project or issue? So that's something that we work very hard on. We also have an international member directory and have clients constantly scanning our directory for individuals that hold certain credentials. So if you're a registered waterproofing consultant and you're the only registered waterproofing consultant in the state of Colorado, you're going to be highly marketable. And I can guarantee you that based on our clicks through our directory for professional registrations, there's a lot of value there for those individuals that hold these designations. Okay, so chapter is interested in putting on technical education, and this needs to run through a review process at IIBEC headquarters to ensure that the education program is technical in nature, that it meets IIBEC criteria for continuing education hours. And this is a formalized program that was completed a couple years ago. We now request for chapters to fill out a form, send in kind of an overview, an agenda, a bio, and we try to turn this around within a few weeks. It could take up to 45 days, so it's important that you get these submitted if you think you're going to be putting on a education program and need IBEC approval. When these emails are sent out and approval is given, there are CEH approval stamps that are attached to that email. And you are welcome to use that CEH stamp for the education program that was approved. You are not permitted to use the CEH stamp for other education that hasn't gone through the review process. So each stamp is linked to a specific course or program that the chapter has received approval for. Just to review this quickly, all education must be technical in nature. It must be related to the building enclosure industry. And we also encourage our applicants, our professional registrants, to, if they're submitting CEHs, that the technical education needs to be relevant to the program that they have completed. So if you hold the registered exterior wall consultant designation, we expect the technical education to be relevant to exterior wall consulting. And the program must be at least 1 hour long. We have a little bit of flexibility in this, but we really want the technical education offered to be substantial and in-depth, and we don't want it to be just a quick blip on the attendees' radar. We really want them to walk away with knowledge and more information than what they had going into that technical program. So we feel that 1 hour is the minimum for a good quality, in-depth technical program. This PDF can be found on the IBEC website under the professional registrations tab. You can go to IBEC.org, click on professional registrations, scroll all the way down to IBEC CEH provider, and there's information there to submit technical education. As mentioned, once the program is approved, you'll receive an email that has the CEH stamp. You can see an example of that here with the number of continuing education hours that are assigned. So if it's a 3-hour program, then you'll get a stamp that has the little 3 in it. The example here for the certificate of completion is 6 hours. Maybe that's an all-day program that a chapter put on. We also have some templates if you would like one. A lot of chapters have developed their own. This is, again, important to provide all of your technical education attendees some sort of certificate of completion or attendance verification document. Giving them this document will allow them to self-report it and, again, very important, self-upload that documentation that supports their claim of continuing education hours being completed. So that concludes the professional registrations and CEH presentation. If you have questions, you're always welcome to reach out to staff. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you very much. Break.
Woohoo, great job.
Thanks. What did that clock in as? Do we know?
No, I don't know yet. I won't know, unfortunately, until the recording downloads. But that was good. It was really smooth. That sounded really good.
Couple verbal stumbles, but it'll be okay. Okay. And we're still recording, so I can just start whenever, correct?
Yep. Here, oh, well, I was going to turn my camera on, but yes, absolutely. So just whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm going to count myself down, and then I will start on membership here in a second. Okay.
Yep, take your time.
3, 2, 1. Hi there. This is Alec Jeffries, Senior Director of Membership and Registrations for IBEC. This is the member development at the chapter level presentation. During the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to do a quick overview of what IBEC's membership looks like, talk a little bit about what I consider the 3 pillars of membership development, which is development, growth, and retention. These three things are all independent, but absolutely required to have a successful registration and membership program. Membership is the core of our organization. We are a membership organization, and without our fantastic members, we would not be a professional association. So during the next 15-20 minutes, we'll go through what it looks like at a chapter level for membership development, membership growth, and membership retention. So to start, I want to provide a quick overview of what IIBEC membership looks like as a whole. As a chapter leader and from a chapter perspective, it's important that we have a thriving membership base, because our association is structured that if you are an IIBEC member, dues-paying member, you also gain access to local affiliated chapters. And of course, local affiliated chapters can make the decision to or not to charge a chapter fee in addition to the IIBEC membership fee. But that is, of course, a decision for the local chapter. This screen here shows that on average, IIBEC has been experiencing 3 to 4% annual growth for our membership. With an unusual pandemic year, we're expecting our membership to be relatively flat, but not lose members. And right now we're hovering right around 3,550 members. This depends on the time of year that the membership is reviewed and when our billing cycles are, but our membership has been growing strong, and we've really been very grateful to have a very loyal and long-standing membership base that have contributed greatly to our organization. So thank you all as chapter leaders, as IIBEC members. Without you all, we wouldn't be the professional membership organization that we are. To look at the pie chart here a little bit, our core and focus of our membership is obviously our consultant, building enclosure consultant members. And this makes up the largest member classification of our organization at 51% currently. Our next biggest membership group is our industry members. This oftentimes is focused on contractors, manufacturing individuals, folks that are product sales reps. Those individuals fall under the industry membership category. Our consultant members are engineers, architects, building enclosure consultants, folks that work for design firms or other consulting focused professional groups. And you can see here our professional types, the numbers, percentage of the organization. Again, this is a snapshot, it changes, but I wanted to provide everyone with kind of an update with where we are as an organization for professional membership. As you can see, IIBEC has grown substantially over the past decade or so. We are in unusual times, to say the least, so it's expected that we're not going to continue to see a sharp trajectory to the moon, but I'm confident our membership will stay strong. We might stumble a little bit during the next couple months, a reflection of the economics of a pandemic, but we will bounce back. Already towards the end of 2020, we're starting to see strong indications that our members are starting to return to more normal business environment, which is also helping to keep their membership current. And IIBEC is also starting to see more of our members engaging with technical education, looking forward to our big annual convention and trade show in 2021 and our other events. So recap, the past decade has seen about a 3 to 4% annual increase in membership growth. This is really a testament to our volunteers, you all chapter leaders, because without our grassroots organizations and our affiliated chapters, our members wouldn't experience the same value that they have. And it's really the value that brings both new members to our organization and keeps our existing members renewing each and every year. I'm delighted to report that we continue to have very high retention rates in our members, particularly our core consultant members. For an association like ours, we experience about, on average, 87% of our members renew every year. And for other associations, they're happy to be maybe 75, 80%. So we're above the industry trend when it comes to professional members renewing each year. So from a chapter perspective, it's important to know where your members are located. Chapters have different geographic boundaries, but regardless of whether you are a statewide chapter, a region-wide chapter, or a major metropolitan chapter, it's good to know where your members are located. So here is a heat map showing where IBEC members are located. Traditionally, the East Coast of the United States in North America have been our largest areas for IBEC members and most concentrated. This heat map shows the concentration of IBEC members. So it's not surprising that cities like Atlanta, the Northeast, Chicago, Toronto have very large, highly concentrated members and IBEC members. And oftentimes when our team is looking to identify where a new chapter or branch should be created, we use a map like this to say, oh, there's a emerging group of new IBEC members in a city that's not currently served by a chapter. Maybe we should consider reaching out and creating a chapter. So knowing where our IBEC members are located is very, very important. Using this data to structure chapters and to host events is also very important. And right now, IIBEC staff provides monthly rosters, member rosters to chapter leaders. If you ever need additional information or are curious about member demographics or member numbers and locations, you're always welcome to reach out. We have a very robust member database where we can pull information, and if it's for chapter business or for chapter planning, then we're happy to share that data. So Region 1 and Region 2, East Coast, are traditionally where we've seen the largest growth in new members, although Region 5 in the West Coast has also been seeing quite a bit of growth. Region 2 is our largest region from a membership standpoint, and Region 1 follows, and again, Region 5 is also right on the heels. Region 4, Texas, also has a substantial number of members. California is our largest state with almost 400 or 500 active members in that state alone. Texas has several hundred members, Florida. So depending on the chapter and where you're located, some chapters have a lot of IIBEC members in their region. Other chapters maybe have less, but very passionate IIBEC members. So really the formula of how you reach out to members should start with knowing who's in your backyard. And the member roster that's provided every month is very useful data. We also provide a list of new members, and we certainly encourage chapter leaders to reach out to those new members, make them feel welcome, and get them engaged with the chapter. So here's another map. This is a plot map as opposed to a heat map, and the plot map shows zip codes where there are active members. So each red dot represents a zip code that has an active IIBEC member. So chapter leaders need to know who's in their backyard, but also what local attractions does your chapter have that perhaps other chapters or other regions of the United States aren't able to offer. And we certainly encourage chapters to play to your strengths. So if you're the New England chapter and you have a big lobster feast every year, that's playing to your strength and highly encouraged and welcomed. One thing to note is that IIBEC members have access to all local affiliated chapters. So if an IIBEC member lives in Atlanta, but is traveling to Denver for work, or maybe is posted to Denver for a couple months, they are welcome to engage with that Colorado chapter and attend their events, even if that's not their home base chapter. Creating an influential chapter requires engaging new volunteers, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but local organizations are also very important to engage. A lot of chapters have had success with engaging local universities and local civic organizations, partnering with them either for fundraising activities for nonprofits or on a technical level, partnering with a university to host education programs. Sharing resources is really important. And when you have a academic institution or a civic institution that can share meeting space or technical experts in a certain field, it's great to create that common bond, start the conversation, and work together. And lastly, word of mouth is so strong. If you work in a large office, I always encourage IBEC members to bring their colleagues and friends to the next chapter meeting. This is kind of a no-brainer, but oftentimes people as an IBEC member, they don't always engage the folks closest to them, and they think that they need to engage people at another company or another organization. Sometimes those surrounding you are your best first point of contact for bringing them to the local chapter and finding that new volunteer. So if you're mentoring someone in your office, if you have a colleague that's new to the office, encourage them and invite them to the next chapter program. They might be that next superstar chapter volunteer. All right, chapter development. So how do we develop a strong chapter? I always say it starts with maintaining a game plan and having clear expectations. And that starts with data and knowing who the IBEC members are and what value and things that those individuals look for in their local chapter. And this might be different depending on the size of your chapter and your geographic location. So surveying local chapter members is a great idea. It creates a conversation with those individuals. And a couple reminders, it's always important that when IBEC affiliated chapters are reaching out to the members in their area, that they clearly identify the communication as chapter communication, not coming from IBEC headquarters. Sometimes members that aren't engaged on a regular level, they can get a little confused whether this is the local chapter reaching out to them or whether it's IBEC headquarters reaching out to them. So just take a little bit of time to explain who you are as a chapter volunteer, who you're representing, and we obviously want our IBEC affiliated chapters to have a robust and engaged membership group around them. So we want you to reach out to everyone and anyone that's in the industry and that's an active member close to your chapter. It's also important to note that IBEC has annual membership dues, you all know that, but some chapters also have chapter dues, and it's important to clarify the difference. All IBEC members must pay IBEC dues, and as part of your dues, you receive member benefits and services, including access to affiliated chapters. And we really want the local affiliated chapters to make the decision of what's best for you and your membership group, whether you do a la carte payment system of if you're coming to a lunch and learn, then you just pay for that event, or if it makes more sense to pay an annual fee to the local chapter in addition to the annual IBEC membership dues. Really, that's up to the chapter, and we kind of leave it up to you all to decide how best to handle that. And sharing information is so important, and this is something that I can't emphasize enough. IBEC, we share our member rosters and our new members with chapter leaders every month, but we also want chapter leaders to share with IBEC headquarters what successes they're seeing, what failures they're seeing, what are they hearing from chapter members, what benefits or value are more important than others. Transferring this information and sharing it is really important for us as an organization because it allows us to reallocate resources if needed. So if we're hearing all of the chapters saying we need X, Y, Z, well, we can figure out how do we get the chapters those new resources. Or if members are going to chapter events and saying that they really enjoyed a certain course, that course might be a great course to take on the road or share with another chapter to host. So sharing communication, sharing data, very important. If you have a successful chapter meeting, or if you don't have a successful chapter meeting, we want to know why, and we want to know who attended so we can help reinforce and support you all as chapter volunteers. We know the strength of our chapters is really on the shoulders of volunteers. You all have full-time jobs and are super busy as it is. So we want to use data and metrics to be able to learn from our mistakes and share that across the board with our other affiliated chapters. And collaborating with peer organizations, sharing resources, these things are important because our chapters are volunteer-led. We are a nonprofit organization, so when we can collaborate with like-minded organizations, like-minded chapters, then we really see a win-win. We attract and engage their audience, they engage our audience, and we see a lot of good collaboration that way. So flow of information, I've talked about this a little bit. Each month, IIBEC staff provides chapter leaders an email that has the member roster, an updated member roster, as well as list of IIBEC new members. And the chapters hopefully use that information to reach out to their community, to engage their members on a local level, and to encourage them to attend events. Obviously, chapters can have lists and member contact information and organize that information however you like. We encourage chapters to reach out to non-members in your community, but we also ask that you transfer that information back to headquarters so we can get that non-member that maybe attended a chapter event and put them in our database so we can get them on the email list of next time there's a program or an event in their area. So transfer of information is very, very important. IIBEC sends it out to chapter volunteers. Chapter volunteers use that information to engage their local communities, perhaps increasing that list and increasing their connections and network, and then sharing that information back with IIBEC headquarters is very important. Bottom line, we're here to help. The more information, the better we can share. If there's things that you need from us, please reach out. If there's information that you discover or a new company that's on the scene in your town and you think that company would be great to host a golf tournament, then share that information. It's valuable from us, and sharing information goes both ways, and we want to share more with you all, and we expect to receive information and grow our member database and non-member list as well. So the three pillars, what I consider for membership growth and development, are really to attract new members and engage those members, and then convert those members to volunteers, folks that take time out of their busy schedules to help promote the chapter. And here's some bullet points for attracting, engaging, and converting. But at the beginning, you've got to lure someone into the chapter. Maybe that's through technical education. Maybe that's through a meet and greet. Maybe it's social, maybe it's networking. There's a lot of different motivations for people to attend a chapter event, and it's important to know who your members are and what motivates them to come to a chapter event. If you have a monthly luncheon and everyone loves the food, that's a great motivation. Keep that up. But you've got to have something to attract them to that initial meeting. So knowing what your resources are and how best to attract people, that's a good thing. I also encourage surveying your members, so they may give you some honest feedback that technical education wasn't really appropriate for my group, but I really enjoyed the venue. Great information to know. Surveying, asking people for feedback is always important for enhancing the benefits and services that a chapter and IIBEC from an organization standpoint provides. Engaging your members, not just once a year when it's time to pay dues, but regularly. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them what opportunities they'd like to see. If there's benefits and services that they aren't currently receiving, either from a IIBEC organizational standpoint or from a local chapter standpoint, it's important to ask those questions and be honest. We want to, as an organization, we strive to be nimble, in that if we have a large membership demographic that wants to see something, then we want to take action and accommodate them as best as possible. We are not such a large organization that we are stuck in our ways and we refuse to change. We are a industry that has a lot of different technical experts and a lot of different subfields within the construction industry, and that makes us have education programs that are roofing focused, wall focused, waterproofing focused. We have new building enclosure commissioning focus, education and certification that'll be coming out soon. So there's a lot of different opportunity, and knowing who's in your backyard is really important for creating, attracting, and engaging members. And lastly, convert them. Once they come to a few chapter events, don't be afraid to ask them to serve on a chapter committee, to stand up and volunteer, to take a responsibility. And so we've obviously all talked and learned a little bit about chapter leadership burnout and how do we prevent that. But it's important that we convert our regular attendees to taking on a little bit of ownership of that local chapter. And what we've seen is our dedicated members and volunteers really benefit quite a bit, both professionally and personally, from taking on a little chapter responsibility. It might boost their sales, it might boost their business management skills, it might boost their professional network or new friend circle. And those are all benefits that we obviously want to share with our dedicated and loyal members and those that may serve in a leadership capacity for local chapters. All right, growth. And growth for me is really recruiting and retaining members. And you can bring in new members all day long, but if you're not keeping those retention levels up, then it's just an evolving door and they're leaving after a year or two. So growth for me really focuses on retention and how do you keep a member that's maybe new to the organization or a member that's been with IIBEC, formerly RCI, for 30 plus years. How do you keep them renewing every year and seeing the value? And part of that is listening to our members, providing surveys and opportunities for them to voice their opinions and desires from a professional organization standpoint, leadership opportunities, committees. These are all things that encourage people to stick around and to have a little buy-in of a professional organization. And at the end of the day, a rising tide raises all ships. So as the professional standing and awareness throughout the industry and the larger construction industry increases, and people recognize that building enclosure consultants and the kind of the other communities surrounding them are a strong and important aspect of the construction industry, well, that's good for all of us. And so it's important that we have members that are engaging, that are growing our organization. We've always said for chapter leaders that having goals and achievements is really how you start. And the annual leadership, the annual program for having chapter leaders submit all of their information is really, really important, because without that chapter awards program, it's difficult to document year in and year out the accomplishments and track progress of a chapter, because volunteers may retire, may pass the baton, but having that annual chapter awards program is really, really important. That application where we ask the chapters to fill out their finances, their programs, there's a point system. We try to recognize chapters for as much that they put into this program. All of those things are very, very important, and then we can keep track of chapter growth and success over the years. Word of mouth is so important, both from a local standpoint as well as a national and organizational growth standpoint. And when we survey our members from an international standpoint, and we ask new members, how did you hear about IIBEC? Oftentimes it's word of mouth. They had a colleague that is maybe getting ready to retire, and the new member is maybe an emerging professional or someone new to the company, and their colleague said, hey, you should check out IIBEC. Or a new employee says, I need a little bit more technical knowledge in a certain area. Who do I go to? And word of mouth, a colleague perhaps says, oh, you should check out IIBEC. They've got a great online education program that covers that. So word of mouth is important. During chapter programs, it's important that you talk a little bit about who you are as a chapter. Anytime a chapter starts a program, say a few words about the organization, just high level. this is who we are, this is who we represent. We're glad you're here today, and direct them to either the chapter website or IIBEC.org website, and get folks that are attending chapter check. I'm receiving a notice that my audio is not coming through. Well, I'm going to keep on going because I only have a few more slides. If I need to re-record this section, then I can.
Okay, that sounds good. You're back on. You did freeze for a bit, so we'll check the recording, but you're also running just a little bit long, so just keep that in mind.
Got it. So growth structure. I think this photo is a good analogy of how we want to structure chapter volunteers. We want a good support base of chapter volunteers, so we don't have one or two people shouldering all of the burden. And it should really be a pyramid approach where you have a president and a chapter board, but you have a lot of chapter volunteers that have very specific and identified responsibilities within the chapter. So spread the workload. We want to prevent burnout as much as possible, and try to identify new chapter volunteers when possible. And to wrap up this presentation, retention is so important. IIBEC has traditionally had around 87% on average retention. 2020, I think, is going to be a little lower just because of the pandemic and unusual business climate. But membership retention is really important. And how do you retain members? You have to encourage involvement, communicate proactively. We need to know who our members are and segment them. That's how we create benefits and services that are appropriate for our membership base. And the membership changes as the years chug on with a professional association. There might be new or different methods for our members to consume information. So 87% is usually kind of the target of what IIBEC as a IIBEC headquarters looks for membership retention each year. We want to make sure we have clear expectations, so when a new member joins, they know exactly what IIBEC will offer, and we want to continue to grow and enhance our member benefits and services. This year and in the past 6 to 8 months in particular, we've been putting a lot of our member benefits and services virtual, which is kind of responding to the times, but also very important from a retention standpoint because we want our members to stick with us regardless of what business climate's out there. That concludes the membership development at a chapter level presentation. Please reach out to IIBEC staff if you have any questions or would like further information. Thank you. All finished.
Nicely done. Okay, other than that one little part, and we'll go back and review it, but I think that was really going to be the only issue. I'm going to check on the timing once, here, hold on. Pardon my hair, the longer the day goes on, it's just getting bigger. So I think we're still going to be good. Jennifer's was only like 10 minutes, but I'll check. For Bert's, I just extended the day by like 15 minutes. So if that's the case, then I would much rather have good content and just extend the day by like 10 minutes as opposed to like narrow down content. So I think we're fine. That was really good.
And both of those presentations are back to back. So if one's a little shorter than the other, I think it'll all balance out.
Yeah, there is going to be some time for Q&A after. You'll pop on live like we did at convention, but typically that doesn't go crazy. So
cool.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to end this. I've got a call actually with Bob. I just messaged him. I was like, I'll call you as soon as I'm done. So I'm going to go ahead and give him a call. Thank you.
Good deal. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay,
yeah, and you'll take a look at the recordings, let me know if there's anything I need to do. Okay, awesome.
Yep, I'm gonna review them, no problem.
Cool,
Okay.
see ya.
Bye.